Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. There are women out here, quiet ones, loud ones, bold ones, broken ones, women who carry something different. Not just potential, not just promise, but power. And God doesn't just bless them with favor. He blesses them by pulling back the curtain and showing them the enemy. See, if you're one of those women, you don't live a normal life. Nah, you walk into rooms and spirits shift. Not because you're loud, not because you're flashy, but because what's inside of you disturbs what's hiding in others. That's divine, that's real. When God is with you, he doesn't just hand you blessings wrapped in bows. No, he gives you vision, discernment, clarity. He whispers in your spirit, that ain't it. He'll pull you away from what looks good to protect you from what's evil. That's love. That's favor. Sometimes you cry over people God revealed to you. People you thought were for you. Turns out they were only around you to study you, to slow you down, to water your doubt. But here's the blessing. He didn't just remove them. He showed you who they were. You ever wonder why the warfare is so heavy on you? Why you're tired and you haven't done anything wrong? Because the enemy sees what's coming before you do. He sees the crown on your head even when you feel broken, and so he attacks. But God, he lets you feel the friction so you build the fire. He doesn't stop the enemy, he exposes him. You're not losing friends, you're gaining focus. You're not rejected, you're redirected. You're not unlucky, you're unbothered. Because you know the one who goes before you. And when he lights the path, darkness doesn't stand a chance. God bless women who listen to his voice. Not the crowd, not the comments, not the culture. When he says move, you move. When he says be still, you wait. And when he says that's the enemy, you don't negotiate with it. You walk away. So if you've been feeling isolated, misunderstood, under attack, don't trip, don't fold, don't question your worth. That's just proof you're a woman God is trusting with vision. He reveals the enemy to protect you, not to scare you. And when he does, you smile, you stand tall, you keep walking. Because when God reveals it, it's already lost its power. You don't have to fight dirty when you're covered in divine. Let them come, let them talk, let them plot. You're already blessed. And what God reveals, he also removes. Discernment is your gift. It's not just a feeling, it's a spiritual compass, an inner knowing that doesn't rely on sight or sound. You can walk into a room and feel something is off before a word is even spoken. People call it intuition, but you know it's deeper than that. It's the Holy Spirit whispering, nudging, protecting. It's why you don't trust everything that glitters. It's why you've learned to pause when others rush in. You've been through too much to ignore what your spirit picks up. You might not be able to explain it to others. You may not have the receipts, the evidence, or the proof, but your soul knows. You recognize the difference between someone who means well and someone who's wearing a mask. You've seen too many smiling faces turn into silent enemies. And every time you ignored that quiet voice inside, you paid the price. So now you trust it. You honor it. Discernment keeps you out of situations that were meant to destroy you. It helps you see the lie wrapped in charm. It reveals manipulation beneath flattery. It separates the assignment from the distraction. Some people don't understand how you always seem to know. They call you paranoid, too guarded, maybe even judgmental. But they don't see the nights you cried over trusting the wrong ones. They don't understand that your discernment was built through fire, not fear. This gift doesn't make you better than anyone, it makes you wiser. You see the patterns, you feel the shifts, you spot the spirit, not the style. And that's why the enemy can't get close without being exposed, because when God gives you discernment, it's not to make you suspicious, it's to make you safe. You're often isolated before elevation. It's not punishment, it's preparation. God doesn't elevate in public what he hasn't refined in private. So when the phone stops ringing, when the invitations stop coming, when the people you used to lean on start pulling away, don't panic. That silence isn't empty, it's sacred. That space is where God starts doing his deepest work in you. He separates you not to hurt you, but to sharpen you. In the quiet, you learn to hear his voice without the noise of opinions. In the stillness, you recognize what peace really feels like, not the kind that comes from comfort, but the kind that survives the storm. Isolation teaches you how to rely on him, not them. It forces you to let go of needing to be understood, needing to be included, needing to be seen. Because elevation isn't about applause, it's about alignment. There's a breaking that comes before the building, a cutting away before the rising up. God removes the crowd so you can stop performing. He removes the crutches so you can finally walk in strength. He'll strip you of what you thought you needed just to show you he's all you ever did. And in that quiet place, he deals with the fear, the pride, the wounds you've been hiding under busyness. He doesn't just elevate your position, he elevates your perspective. People might think you fell off, that you're slipping, that you're losing, but they don't know you're in training. They don't see the spiritual gym God has you in. They don't realize silence is part of the strategy. You're being positioned for something greater, and the weight of where you're going requires the strength that only solitude can build. You attract spiritual warfare because you carry something the enemy fears. You don't have to chase conflict. It finds you, not because you're weak, but because your presence threatens darkness. The moment you started walking in purpose, the moment you stopped settling for less, the moment you said yes to healing, growing, and rising, the enemy took notice. You became a target not for what you've done, but for who you're becoming. And that warfare, it's confirmation, not condemnation. The attacks don't always look obvious. Sometimes it's fatigue that doesn't make sense. Other times it's confusion, doubt, fear creeping in when you were just confident. It can show up as relationships falling apart, opportunities slipping through your fingers, or mental heaviness that sits on your chest when everything around you seems fine. That's not coincidence. That's spiritual. Because when the enemy can't destroy you, he distracts you. He brings noise to drown out clarity, chaos to block your peace, and pressure to push you back into comfort zones you outgrew. But here's the thing. The attacks only come because there's something worth attacking. You have oil on your life. You're marked. You're chosen. You walk with authority, even when you don't feel it. And every time you pray when you're tired, praise when you're hurting, or keep going when it would have been easier to quit, you're doing damage in the spirit. The enemy doesn't fight those who aren't a threat. So if you're catching hell, it's because heaven has plans for you. Spiritual warfare doesn't mean God left you. It means he trusts you. He trusts that you'll stand even when shaking, that you'll keep your faith even with tears in your eyes, and that you'll remember you're not fighting for victory, you're fighting from victory. Your intuition aligns with God's timing, and that's why you move different. You don't jump at every opportunity. You don't panic when doors close. You don't force what doesn't feel right, because deep inside you've learned to wait for that divine yes. The one that doesn't come with confusion or pressure, but with peace. People may think you're hesitant, too slow, too careful, but they don't understand that you don't move unless the Spirit says, move. You've seen what happens when you run ahead of God, and now you know better. There's a rhythm to your walk, a sacred patience that's not built on fear, but on faith. You trust that if it's meant for you, it won't miss you. That what God has ordained will arrive exactly when it's supposed to, not a moment too early, not a second too late. Your intuition, that quiet tug in your spirit, is more than instinct. It's a signal. It's heaven's whisper reminding you to pause or proceed or prepare. You've learned to stop apologizing for waiting, for not forcing connections, for walking away from things that looked good on paper but felt wrong in your soul. Because the timing of God isn't always logical, but it's always right. And every time you listened, every time you obeyed that inner nudge, you saw it, the protection, the redirection, the blessing that came when you didn't settle. There's a reason you feel off when something's off. That's discernment. That's alignment. That's grace. You're not being picky or dramatic. You're being led. And that's why your life doesn't move by pressure or people, it moves by presence. When your intuition and God's timing align, things fall into place that no striving could have built. And that's where your strength lies, in knowing when to move and when to be still. You lose people easily, but gain peace. And at first it stings. People you thought would be in your life forever start to fade. Conversations dry up. Energy shifts. Suddenly you're not invited, not included, not even thought of. And it hurts because your heart was pure, your loyalty was real. But over time, you start to see it. Losing them wasn't a loss, it was a release. God didn't subtract people from your life to punish you. He did it to protect your peace. You used to fight for relationships that drained you. You held on to connections out of habit, out of history, out of hope that they'd come back around. But growth demands space. And peace doesn't live where chaos is tolerated. So when you started healing, choosing yourself, honoring your boundaries, the crowd got smaller, not because you changed in a bad way, but because you finally stopped shrinking to make others comfortable. People will call it cold, say you switched up, say you think you're better, but you're not bitter. You're just tired of pretending. You're done over-explaining your worth to those committed to misunderstanding it. You're no longer begging to be chosen when you've already been called. And when the wrong people walk away, God fills the space with calm, with clarity, with strength you didn't know you had. You don't chase anymore. You don't force anymore. You've learned that anyone who's meant for you will flow with you, not fight your growth, not resent your light. And with every goodbye that felt like a betrayal, you gained something unshakable: peace of mind, peace of soul, peace in knowing that your circle may be smaller, but it's sacred. What you lost in numbers, you gained in freedom. What you lost in noise, you gained in stillness. You see patterns others ignore. It's not that you're trying to find faults, it's that your spirit won't let you overlook what keeps repeating. You notice the shift in tone, the subtle manipulation behind kind words, the cycle that keeps showing up in different people with the same spirit. You catch it before it becomes chaos. While others are caught up in appearances, you're watching behavior. You hear what's not said, feel what's behind the smile, and spot the red flags wrapped in charm. It's not paranoia, it's perception. God has trained your eyes to see deeper. Some people can be fooled by surface level actions, but not you. You've been through enough to know better. You've learned that fruit reveals the root. You pay attention to how people treat others when no one is watching. You notice how patterns of disrespect are disguised as jokes. You see when someone's interest is convenience, not commitment. And when something doesn't sit right with your spirit, you don't wait for proof. You trust the pattern. It's not always easy seeing what others ignore. Sometimes you wish you didn't notice so much. You wish you could go with the flow just once without your spirit alerting you. But deep down, you know it's a gift. God allows you to see because He trusts you to act. He trusts you to walk away when it's not right, to set the boundary, to say no even when it's uncomfortable. Your ability to see patterns has saved you from heartbreak, betrayal, wasted time, and spiritual attacks disguised as opportunity. Others might not understand why you don't entertain certain people or step into certain spaces, but that's okay. You don't need them to understand. You are called to be aware, and that awareness is a shield, one that protects your peace, your purpose, and your promise. You feel a heavy burden to pray. It's not just about your own needs or desires. It's about the weight of the world on your heart, the people you may never meet, and the struggles you can't see but feel deep within your spirit. When others go on about their lives, you're sometimes overcome with a sense that there's more to do, more to lift up in prayer. It's like a call you can't ignore, a pull that doesn't let you rest until you've whispered those words to the heavens. You've learned that prayer isn't just a conversation with God, it's an assignment. It's a responsibility to intercede for the lost, for the broken, for those in need of healing, guidance, and strength. This burden isn't a burden of frustration, it's one of compassion. You feel for people you don't know personally, but something inside of you knows they're struggling. Sometimes it's a friend's pain you can't even articulate, but you pray anyway. Other times, it's a situation you've only heard about in passing, yet your heart won't let you rest until you've spoken it out loud to God. You've realized that prayer isn't always about asking for yourself. It's about standing in the gap for others, lifting their burdens, even when they can't lift them on their own. The heaviness you feel doesn't always make sense. You're tired, you're busy, but that tug on your heart is persistent. It's a reminder that you were called to be a vessel, to speak life where there's death, hope where there's despair. It's as if God knows you'll answer the call. And every time you do, every prayer you pray, you feel that connection. That peace that surpasses understanding, knowing that your prayers are never wasted. You're attacked most when you're about to break through. It's almost like clockwork. Just when things start aligning, just when the pieces are falling into place, the storm hits harder than before. It feels like the enemy is relentless, throwing obstacle after obstacle, testing your strength, testing your resolve. But here's the truth: the enemy doesn't waste energy on those who aren't a threat. When you're under attack, it's a sign that something big is about to happen. The enemy knows that your breakthrough is near, and he'll do everything in his power to distract you, discourage you, or make you doubt your path. But what you're really feeling is the pressure of the push to step into a new season, a new level, a new purpose. It's easy to think that the attacks mean something is wrong, but they actually mean something is right. You've been faithful, you've been diligent, and you've been preparing in the unseen. The breakthrough is already in motion. That's why it's getting hard. That's why the struggle feels extra heavy. It's the final stretch before the elevation. And this is the moment when your resilience is tested, your faith is sharpened, and your character is refined. When things get hardest, you have to dig deeper, trust more, and keep pushing forward. The breakthrough isn't just about what you receive on the other side, it's about who you become in the process. The enemy knows that once you break through, nothing will be the same. Your influence, your purpose, your strength will shift in ways you can't even imagine yet. So keep going, keep standing, keep praying. The attack isn't an indication that you're losing, it's the enemy's last attempt to stop what's already been ordained. You're closer than you think. You're called to lead, not follow. It's in your nature, even when you try to hide it. You may have tried to fit in, blend in, follow the crowd, but something inside of you always resisted. You weren't made to follow trends. You were made to set them. You weren't made to walk behind others. You were made to walk in front, leading with courage, vision, and purpose. And though you may have doubted your calling at times, the moment you decide to step into it fully, you realize that the pressure, the responsibility, and even the loneliness that come with leadership are signs of your anointing. Leadership doesn't always look glamorous, It's not about titles or praise. It's about the quiet decisions, the moments when no one's watching, the times you stand firm when others waver. It's the ability to make tough calls, to speak truth even when it's uncomfortable, and to carry the weight of those who depend on you. People will look to you for direction, for guidance, and you'll often feel the weight of their expectations. But that's not something to fear. That's a sign of the trust God has placed in you. You don't need permission to lead. God has already given you the authority. And as a leader, you're not just responsible for your own success, but for the success of others. You pave the way not just for yourself, but for those who will follow in your footsteps. It's a heavy mantle, yes, but it's also a divine responsibility. You might feel unprepared, you might feel unsure, but the very fact that you've been called to lead means you have everything inside of you to rise to the. Don't shrink back. Embrace the role, because the world needs the leader you're becoming. You walk in obedience, not popularity. While others chase approval and status, you've learned to pursue something deeper: purpose. You've learned that the crowd will cheer for you as long as you're doing what they expect. But as soon as you take a step in the direction God has called you, that crowd can get quiet. Or worse, turn away. The world might not understand your decisions, your pace, or your priorities, but you've stopped caring about fitting in. You care more about being aligned with God's will than the world's applause. Obedience isn't about conforming to the comfort of others. It's about trusting in the path laid out for you, even when it's not popular or easy. Walking in obedience means making choices that don't always make sense to those around you. It means saying no to the things that might seem good, but aren't in line with your purpose. It means standing firm in your values, even when you're the only one standing. And while others might question your decisions, you've learned that their opinions don't define your calling. You are not here to seek approval from fleeting crowds. You are here to fulfill a divine purpose that requires courage, discipline, and trust in the one who called you. Obedience sometimes means walking alone, at least for a season. You may lose friends, opportunities, or comforts, but you gain something far more valuable: a peace that comes from knowing you're doing exactly what you were meant to do. And in the end, when God sees your faithfulness in obedience, He will reward you in ways that surpass anything the world could offer. Your success won't be measured by followers, but by your faithfulness to the call. You forgive quicker, heal deeper. It's not because you forget what happened or pretend the hurt didn't exist. It's because you've learned that holding on to pain only holds you back. Forgiveness isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. It's the decision to release the weight of bitterness and resentment, knowing that carrying it only keeps you tethered to what's been done to you. You've learned that forgiveness isn't for the person who wronged you, it's for you. It's for your peace, your growth, your freedom. The quicker you forgive, the quicker you free yourself from the prison of the past. You've realized that healing can't happen if you're constantly revisiting the wound, reopening it over and over. The more you forgive, the more you grow. You start to see forgiveness not as a one-time event, but as a lifestyle, a continuous process that allows you to release and move forward. You stop holding grudges and start holding space for healing. You understand that healing takes time, but it begins when you choose to forgive, even when it doesn't feel fair. It doesn't mean you ignore what was done. It means you choose not to let it define you. You choose to move on, not for the person who hurt you, but for your own peace and well-being. Forgiving quicker doesn't mean you don't feel the pain. It doesn't mean the hurt isn't real. It just means you've stopped letting the hurt have the final say. The deeper you heal, the less power the wounds have over you. You realize that your ability to forgive doesn't diminish your worth. It increases it. Because with every act of forgiveness, you become more aligned with your true self, a self that no longer carries the weight of past offenses, but one that walks in the freedom of release and growth. You're not impressed by titles, only character. You've learned that a title might open a door, but it's the character behind it that determines whether that door remains open or falls apart. Titles can be earned, but character is cultivated over time, tested in silence and proven in adversity. You don't care about the accolades people attach to their names or the status they claim to have. You care about integrity, honesty, humility, and strength, the qualities that truly define a person. Titles can come and go, but character lasts. It's the foundation that holds everything else up. You've encountered people who wear their titles like armor, expecting respect or recognition simply because of their position. But you've seen enough to know that a title doesn't guarantee wisdom, kindness, or decency. You know that the most important thing about a person is not their resume, but their soul, their ability to show up, do what's right even when no one's watching, and treat others with dignity. You understand that a person's worth isn't found in the external, but in how they treat others, how they handle hardship, and how they live when the spotlight is off. You recognize that true leadership isn't about being at the top. It's about serving those around you with authenticity. True greatness comes from a character that reflects strength without arrogance, generosity without expectation, and leadership without domination. When you meet someone, you don't look for their title, you look for their heart. And it's that heart that tells you everything you need to know about who they really are. Titles might catch your attention, but character is what keeps it. You feel when spirits shift in a room. It's an energy, an unspoken current that you sense deep within, even when nothing seems out of place on the surface. There's a subtle change in the atmosphere, a quiet tension or peace that others may overlook, but you feel it immediately. It's not something you can explain with logic. It's something you pick up on intuitively, a knowing that your spirit detects before your mind catches up. The mood changes, the vibe becomes thick, and you know something has shifted, whether it's an argument that hasn't been spoken yet, a hidden agenda, or simply the presence of someone who is carrying unspoken pain or anger. Sometimes the shift is subtle, like a slight change in the air, and other times it's more obvious, a heavy presence that can't be ignored. You've learned to pay attention to these shifts because they guide you. They tell you when to speak, when to be quiet, when to engage, and when to step back. They help you read the room when people's words and actions aren't aligning with what's truly happening beneath the surface. You sense when there's a need for prayer, when there's a need for peace, or when the room is filled with negativity and needs your light. It's a gift that requires discernment, recognizing that not everything is as it seems. And while some people walk into a room and simply interact with what they see, you walk in and interact with what you feel. You understand that what's unseen is often just as powerful as what's visible. You feel the shift, and in doing so, you're able to respond with understanding, clarity, and wisdom that others might miss. That sensitivity to the spiritual atmosphere becomes both a gift and a responsibility. You feel when spirits shift in a room. It's an energy, an unspoken current that you sense deep within, even when nothing seems out of place on the surface. There's a subtle change in the atmosphere, a quiet tension or peace that others may overlook, but you feel it immediately. It's not something you can explain with logic. It's something you pick up on intuitively, a knowing that your spirit detects before your mind catches up. The mood changes, the vibe becomes thick, and you know something has shifted, whether it's an argument that hasn't been spoken yet, a hidden agenda, or simply the presence of someone who is carrying unspoken pain or anger. You speak truth even when your voice shakes. It's not because the truth is easy. It's because you've learned that silence in the face of truth only fuels alive. You've stood in moments when speaking up wasn't comfortable, when the room grew heavy with tension, and when fear gripped you with the thought of being misunderstood or rejected. But you've realized that your responsibility is to speak what's right, not what's popular, not what's easy. The truth may come with a price, but the price of remaining silent is far greater. It takes courage to speak truth, especially when it feels like everything in you wants to stay quiet to keep the peace. But you know that true peace isn't found in hiding the truth, it's found in facing it head on, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. You've learned that your voice has power, and even if your hands tremble, even if your words falter, even if your heart races, you can't let fear silence you. There's a freedom in speaking the truth, even when it shakes you. And the more you speak it, the stronger your voice becomes. You've faced situations where being truthful could cost you relationships, status, or comfort. Yet each time you spoke up, you discovered that the weight of truth wasn't something to fear. It was something to honor. Because truth has a way of cutting through the noise, setting things right, and revealing what's been hidden. The moment you choose to speak, despite the fear, you reclaim your power, your voice. Even shaking becomes the beacon of integrity in a world that often chooses convenience over authenticity. You speak truth because it's your responsibility, your calling, and your way of standing firm in who you are, no matter the consequences. You've learned to thank God for closed doors. At first it stung when opportunities you thought were meant for you slipped away, when paths you were sure would lead to something better abruptly ended. You questioned why it had to be that way, wondering if you had somehow missed the mark or if you were simply not enough. But over time, you began to see the wisdom in those closed doors. They weren't setbacks, but redirections. You've come to understand that not every open door is meant to be walked through, and not every opportunity is the right one, even if it seems perfect on the surface. The closed doors were not rejections, they were protections. They kept you from situations that would have drained you, from relationships that would have hurt you, from opportunities that would have distracted you from your purpose. What you thought you wanted may have looked good, but God knew what you truly needed, and those closed doors were a clear signal that He was guiding you towards something better, something more aligned with your destiny. You began to trust that God's timing is always perfect, even when it feels like things are falling apart. With each closed door, you grew stronger, wiser, and more grateful for the doors that did open, even when they weren't the ones you expected. You learned that God's no is just as much a blessing as His yes. It's a lesson in patience, faith, and trust. Now, when a door closes, you don't question it. You thank Him for it, knowing that there's something greater ahead. You've learned that trust in His plan means you can rest, knowing that when one door closes, another, one more suited to your growth and purpose, is just about to open.